Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Chaska Human Rights Commission for today, Thursday, March 28th, 2024. First up, please, will you call the roll call, please?
Commissioner Hanan,
Present.
Commissioner Welbert,
Here.
Commissioner Gotti,
Here.
Commissioner Me, Commissioner Sanderson,
Here.
Commissioner Hamza,
Here.
Commissioner Hubbard, Commissioner LeSueur, Chair Carlson.
Here. Thank you so much, Elise. We have an exciting agenda this evening with a guest speaker, but our first item on our agenda is to adopt the agenda. And before someone makes a motion on that, I would like to point out number 6A, conversations on R.A.C.E. Due to conflicts and me not apparently communicating clearly, that Adonai will be presenting at our April meeting. And so when our packages are going out during the month of April, look for her proposal at that time. So I'd like to make a motion do I need to make a motion?
Yeah, why don't you make a motion, removing that item from.
Okay, so I make a motion to remove item number 6A from our agenda.
So moved.
Motion made by Sarah, seconded by Jen.
Or second, sorry.
I knew that. Did I say second? It doesn't
No,
matter.
but I said I would make a motion.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. And I'll second your motion.
I don't know.
Is that
I need
clear
more
to our
coffee.
viewing audience? But I believe we have a motion and we have a second to that motion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, ayes carry.
We're kind of new to this.
Yeah. So our guest presentation tonight is with Justin Page. And Justin is an Assistant United States Attorney, District of Minnesota with the Civil Rights Unit. So please, Justin, come up to the podium and share your wonderful news with us.
Well, thank you for having, excuse me. Thank you for having me. It's so nice to be in front of the commission. And thank you because I reached out a few months ago, and thank you for responding to my email and letting me come talk to you to tell you about what I do at the U.S. Attorney's Office. So I am a Assistant U.S. Attorney in the Civil Rights Unit. And I just started the position in January, so I'm pretty new to the position. Prior to becoming an Assistant U.S. Attorney, I was a supervising attorney at Minnesota Legal Aid and the Disability Law Center for about 20 years, where I did a bunch of disability rights work in litigation under the ADA and Fair Housing Act. Last year, because the U.S. Attorney's Office in Minnesota has never had a full-time civil rights attorney. The office fortunately got some funding from the Department of Justice to hire a full-time U.S. attorney that specifically focused on civil rights. I applied, I got the job. I started in, oh, thank you. I started in January, and part of my job is to do outreach. So I had a lot of contacts with the disability community. So I've done a lot of disability community outreach. And then I'm just trying to figure out like who else I can contact. And I went on the Department of Human Rights website, and I saw that there was a long list of human rights commissions across the state. So I reached out to all the human rights commissions. And so thank you again for having me. So the Civil Rights Division of the U.S. Department of Justice handles a number of different types of cases, disability discrimination under Titles II and Title III of the ADA. Title II of the ADA is state and local government. Title III of the ADA are public accommodations. So kind of businesses, your malls, your restaurants, your movie theaters, hospitals. if an individual, sorry about my cough, if an individual has been discriminated against by a public entity or a public accommodation or a local government or a state government, that individual can file a complaint with our office, and we can investigate that type of complaint. So what types of complaints am I talking about? Individual, let's say, individual who is deaf goes to a hospital, needs an ASL interpreter, requests an ASL interpreter, hospital doesn't provide the ASL interpreter. These are unfortunately pretty common. That individual can file a complaint with the Department of Justice on our website, and I can provide you our website and our information on how to actually file a complaint. Another type of complaint, individual who's in college requesting accommodation on an exam. College says we're not going to provide that. The individual can file a complaint. So there's many types of disability discrimination, like types of cases that people can file on. I'm not sure if folks ever contact you and try to file a complaint with your commission, but if they do, we're one agency where you can tell them to file the complaint. Along with the Department of Human Rights, we're different from the Department of Human Rights in that the Department of Human Rights enforces state law under the Minnesota Human Rights Act, and our office enforces federal law. So disability is one area, fair housing discrimination is another. There are two ways. Unlike the disability discrimination complaint where the individual can file, we can investigate and try to negotiate a resolution and litigate if we can't resolve it. The Fair Housing Act is a little bit different with our Housing and Civil Enforcement Division at the Department of Justice. There are two ways a Fair Housing Act case can get before us. One of the ways is, the individual case. Individual has an emotional support animal, tries to go rent an apartment. Landlord says, I'm not going to rent to you because you have the emotional support animal. Well, that's discrimination under the Fair Housing Act. The individual can't just file a complaint with our office, and our office will investigate. The individual has to file a complaint with the Office of Civil Rights for HUD, and then have HUD investigate that complaint. And there's a provision in the Fair Housing Act, if HUD finds probable cause to believe that the individual has been discriminated against, the individual can either elect to keep it with HUD and let it proceed with the HUD process, or can elect to file a lawsuit, at which point an assistant U.S. attorney will be assigned to the case, and our office will represent them in the lawsuit after they elect to file or elect to bring a lawsuit. The other way a case can get to us is kind of a pattern, what's called a pattern or practice case. So it involves more than just one individual. From what it has to involve kind of about 5 or 6 individuals at least. The Housing and Civil Enforcement section of the Department of Justice has an initiative right now to combat sexual discrimination in housing, where a landlord will sexually harass tenants And so in that type of case, if there are 4 or 5 or more individuals, a complaint can be filed with our office. Our office, in conjunction with the Department of Justice, the folks in Washington, D.C., can investigate, talk to witnesses, talk to victims, uh, talk to folks in the community, review documents. And if we find that the complaints have merit, we can try to negotiate a settlement with the defendant, the landlord, and if that doesn't work, we can litigate the case. So that's kind of housing. Another area where we can take complaints is education. So there's an education and opportunity section within the Department of Justice. And we take cases involving bullying and harassment based on race, sex, national origin. So, but it's not just the individual was bullied and now they just want to file a complaint. It's kind of that bullying and harassment where the school knows about it and probably more than the teacher, but where kind of the administration knows about it and just turns a blind eye and doesn't do anything. And the bullying and harassment go on. And in those types of cases, the bullying and harassment is usually occurring to more than one student. And kind of the school district it's problematic, and our office can investigate those cases where we will obviously talk to a bunch of folks, including the students and people within the school district, and review a lot of documentation, and then try to negotiate a resolution with the school to get the school to change its policies so the bullying and harassment stop. Another type of case in schools that we can handle is where individuals with disabilities are being restrained and secluded, and where the school isn't taking other kind of more appropriate behavioral measures, and kind of the first resort is that, when a student's given trouble, the first result is to just kind of go into that seclusion and restraint, without alternatives that can be dealt with so the individual isn't secluded and restrained, because that's not good for students with disabilities. If that's happening, those are also the types of cases that we can handle. There are a number of other, voting obviously is a big issue. And our office the Department of Justice has a voting rights section, and our office can investigate complaints where individuals are denied the ability to vote. We also can do polling place reviews to make sure polling places are accessible to people with disabilities. But voting is an issue that we can work on. So if someone's being denied the right to vote, individuals can file complaints with our office. There are a number of other areas where the Department of Justice the Civil Rights Division has jurisdiction, but those are just kind of a few of the areas that we work in. So if constituents ever complain to your office, or you hear of, discrimination in housing based on disability, in education, our office is a great resource. Complaints can be filed with our office. So thank you for having me, and I'll stand for questions if you have any. Any questions?
Well, I have a question.
Go ahead.
Sure.
Okay. Unlike what we see in media, that cases happen and then investigations occur and settlements then resolve. How long of a process? And maybe has to be more specific on one of the areas that you talked about, but how long does an average case, or with the investigation, the discussions, how long would that take?
Well, there is no average, unfortunately. I can give you a statistic. I think the Department of Justice, there for just the disability rights section, the number of complaints they get a year is 20,000. So they get a lot. While the office is big, it's not big enough to handle 20,000 cases a year. Fortunately, they send some of those they send those to the states, so the U.S. attorneys can handle some of them. But there are a lot of cases that can't be handled just because of lack of resources. Fortunately, I'm in the position to be able to handle more of these cases for our office. In terms of length, I mean, every case is different, but they can take a while. They're not resolved overnight because the individual complains, submits the complaint, and that complaint portal goes to Washington, D.C. It takes, a few weeks at least before they can be processed, and they notify the U.S. attorney that there's this case. And then, once we get the case, we got to reach out to the complainant and then give the respondent time to respond and then conduct an investigation. So it is not a quick process, but it is a thorough process.
Thank you.
So a long time.
Yeah.
So a long time. But with my experience at the Disability Law Center, unfortunately, the State Department of Human Rights, it's a similar kind of lengthy time before cases get resolved.
Certain types of cases tend to resolve quicker than other types. So like a disability discrimination claim may be faster than a housing discrimination claim, or I guess does the area.
So, I mean, I can't give you, since I've only been on this job for about 3 months, but I mean, what I can say is, from my experience as a attorney with the Disability Law Center, it just kind of depends. When I was an attorney at the Disability Law Center, sometimes I'd send my demand letter and the apartment that wouldn't allow the emotional support animal. Okay, you caught us. We messed up. We'll resolve it. Other times, I don't get a response to my letter. And they say, well, you can sue us. So we'll sue you. And, once a case is in litigation, that can take a long time. So it just kind of depends on the facts of the case and the respondent and their interest in settling the case.
You find that most people who file these claims are satisfied with the outcome?
Again,
A lot of people.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
I mean, I'll speak from my experience as an attorney working for the Disability Law Center, because I haven't settled any cases. I've only been there 3 months and I haven't settled any case. But just on my, 20+ years of experience, a lot of most individuals are satisfied, but, litigating these cases, mediating these cases, you know, people who are not lawyers aren't very familiar with the process. And unfortunately, the law is very complicated and has a number of different steps. So it's hard to bring these cases to kind of put yourself out there. And, not every case is, and I'm not saying people are into it, because there are a lot of people who aren't, who just want the policy change, and, if I get the policy change, that's fine. But a lot of people have emotional harm in damages. And, as an attorney, working on behalf of people at the Disability Law Center, it's kind of hard to have those conversations. Like, not every case is $1 million case. Most aren't $1 million cases. And it can be difficult sometimes to get to have those conversations with clients, and you might agree that the harm they suffered is really severe, but unfortunately the law is not going to compensate them for what they really probably should get. So, but I think most people are
I have a
satisfied.
question that's a different one than that, but as the Chaska Human Rights Commission, we primarily educate our community, and we're like advocates for different human rights issues.
Yeah.
If someone came to us with a complaint, we would generally like refer them or go along with them or something to the state human rights department. But if they came to us with a certain case, would we look at what the specifics are, and are there certain criteria that we would say, oh, let's go to this Department of Human Rights, or let's go to the Justice Department? Like, how would you decide what's the better way to refer them?
I mean, again, it's, putting on my hat, because I putting on my hat as an attorney for the Disability Law Center, because I filed complaints with both the Department of Justice and the Department of Human Rights. They both have kind of advantages and disadvantages. It used to be one of the disadvantages of filing for the Department of Human Rights is they just didn't have the resources to handle the case. But now, since they have more funding, they're going to have more resources to handle these cases. Filing with the Department of Human Rights, you can get good results there. So I've had good experiences with both. I mean, I think both agencies in the civil rights realm are underfunded for the number of complaints they receive. But I think both agencies do a good job in responding to the cases that they take a look into.
But there's not certain criteria that says, oh, this is a federal issue, or this is, or
Yeah,
in
well, I mean,
general?
there are some distinctions between the Fair Housing Act and or the Minnesota Department, or the Minnesota Human Rights Act, which is the state anti-discrimination law, and the various kind of federal laws. I mean, there's no kind of one federal human rights act. It's the ADA, it's the Section 504 of the Rehab Act, it's the Fair Housing Act, it's the Civil Rights Act. So just kind of knowing what the issue is, because there could be some issues that aren't covered by federal law, where the remedy would be to file with the State Human Rights Act, under the State Human Rights Act with the Minnesota Department of Human Rights.
For the bullying and harassment cases, is that limited to like protected classes, or is that just bullying and harassment in general?
Protected classes, so race, disability, national origin, sex.
Okay.
Those are the types of cases where we can become involved.
I have a question regarding the violations of the First Amendment rights and such. Since you're a attorney with the Civil Rights Unit, I'm wondering what's the difference between referring a case of First Amendment violation? Is that something more to the human rights, or is that Civil Rights Unit sort of issue?
First Amendment cases, I haven't seen, I don't think I would need to double check, but I don't think the Civil Rights Division handles First Amendment, freedom of speech. And based on my knowledge of the Minnesota Human Rights Act, I don't think the Minnesota Human Rights Act covers First Amendment issues.
About how many cases do you handle at a given time?
Do I handle? Right now I have a few, but that's just because I started. But it's growing. Actually, I just got a bunch of, well, it's over. It's more than a few now. I'm just realizing. I just got a bunch more. So but I'm looking for more. Yeah. So, and other attorneys, while there are no other full-time civil rights AUSAs in our office, there are other attorneys who can handle civil rights claims within our office. So
After someone files a complaint, what kind of like autonomy or impact do they have on what happens with it? Like, do they get to weigh in on how something is handled, or if it's prosecuted, or is it kind of just filing a complaint and then it's up to the U.S. Attorney's Office to kind of decide what to do with it?
So with the U.S. Attorney's Office, if someone files a complaint, our office will investigate the complaint and try to resolve the complaint as possible. We have aligned interests, but unlike when I was, working at the Disability Law Center, actually representing someone, I'm not representing that individual, and I'm representing the U.S. government. So I think in most cases, our interests are aligned, and I always inform people that they have the right to get an attorney and have an attorney be involved. So in our interests are aligned, but I'm not actually representing that individual.
We have a number of resources on our website, but we do not have anything for your office on there.
Okay.
Can I work with you?
Yes.
To get the appropriate-
I will send you the appropriate kind of information.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it'd be great if you could add that to your website. Any other questions?
Thank you for
All right.
reaching out.
Oh,
Jen, you've been on the Human Rights Commission for a period of time, a little bit longer than me. Have you ever, I don't think we've ever had
No.
anyone from the office come and talk with us.
No, well, this is a new position, so
Yeah.
that's one of
This-
the reasons.
Sorry.
but other,
But we've never had a federal representative here,
Yeah.
so this is really an honor to have you
this
here.
is part of my job to kind of go out in the community and let folks know that I'm here, that I'm around, and that people can file complaints with our office.
Your office is located where?
The federal courthouse in Minneapolis.
Okay.
And we just opened a small office in Duluth, so. Yes.
I don't know if we're all going to come and see you, but
Yes.
just for point of reference,
Yeah.
you're in downtown
Well,
Minneapolis.
it's a long drive. It's a long drive, so.
Thank you so much. Are there any other questions?
All right, well, thank you for having me, and if there are any other questions, feel free to reach out.
Thank you so much. You are
Yeah,
welcome to
thanks a
stay through
lot.
the balance of our meeting, but
Unfortunately, I have a daughter to pick up from gymnastics at 8, so I better go. So, but thank you for having me.
Thank
again,
you.
thank you for
Yes.
coming.
Thank you.
Take care.
Yes.
Wow.
Do we need to formally adopt the entire agenda? I believe we
Didn't we?
moved- And we moved to cancel. I didn't know if that was.
We made an amendment, but we didn't adopt the agenda.
Oh, no.
Oh, my goodness.
Let's start the meeting over.
Shall we begin again? Good evening. Thank you for bringing that to the chair's attention. Let's have a motion to approve the agenda.
I moved to approve the agenda.
I'll second.
So a motion has been made by Brittany.
Common.
Is that
Yes.
okay,
Yeah.
Brittany?
Yeah.
And seconded by Juhi to adopt our agenda for this evening. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, ayes carry. Okay, great. Now I can put that check mark right there. Thank you. But thank you for taking us back to the top, because I think it's important that we know each other. And you are new to us this evening. Thank you for being here. But would you like to share information about yourself with the other commissioners? Would you like to know about us?
Well, so I watched the YouTube kind of stream at the last meeting. So I was I guess I unilaterally learned about everyone.
Oh, good,
Yeah. But yes, Brittany, I go by Britt, usually Hanan,
Okay.
but either is I just moved into the community last year. It'll be 1 year in April. And I was looking for a way to get involved, and I'm excited to be here. I don't really know if there's a whole lot more at this time that needs to be said, other than I'm here to help. Well, thanks, yeah. So, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's good to see everyone here this evening. So next up on our agenda is the approval of the minutes for our last meeting. And you've had a chance to take a look at them. If there are any additions, corrections, changes that need to be made, now would be the time. If not, may I have a motion to approve on February 22nd?
So
Motion made by Juhi. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Hannah. There's no further discussion or questions. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes carry. The treasurer's report. Critical piece as we move forward this year. So Elise, would you like to talk a little bit about the treasurer's report?
Certainly, Chair and Commissioners, the Commissioners' report looks pretty similar to what you saw in February. The only expense since that time has been making sure our new commissioners have their T-shirts, which are now in their hands.
Excellent.
Which leaves you with a remaining balance of just over $5,900 for the rest of the year.
Are there any questions to Elise about our treasurer, our treasury report? If not, may I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Motion made by Jen. Is there a second? Seconded by Britt. Is there any discussion? If not, all in favor of approving the treasurer's report as presented, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes carried. Thank you, Elise. So let's talk about some of the activities that we've been involved in, and that we plan to be involved in. The Human Rights Celebration. I think that that's me this year. Generally, I turn to Jen and ask her for her comments, but this year I think that's me. I have not asked for anyone to meet with or start talking about Dr. King's celebration, other than I think it's I'd like to plant a seed for our thoughts to start generating, and that is for those of you who have attended the Dr. King celebration, is there more that we can do to not only celebrate and lift up Dr. King's words, but to perhaps do more action in our community? And so I think that we do a terrific job with bringing in guest speakers, music, interpretation of Dr. King's words. But is there something else that we can do? And I would ask you to think about that, particularly those of you who have signed up for the Dr. King celebration subcommittee. And can you remind me, Elise, who those individuals are?
Yep, so it's you, Kevin and Hannah.
Wonderful. But all opinions, all thoughts are always welcome. Women's Appreciation. Is there someone here from Women's Appreciation this evening?
No, there's not, Chair, but I can give you a quick update.
But I thought that you said that I was on.
Sorry.
That's okay. Okay. But we give the same update right now.
My apologies.
And the update is that we have not met as a subcommittee yet.
They actually did
Okay,
before we
then
made the
you
switch.
go ahead, Elise.
Yeah.
So they did meet, and they talked about kind of replicating what was done last year. So a call has gone out to ask for nominations, and we've received a few, but what we're struggling with is we need to get their consent before we put anything on social media. And so we're having a hard time connecting, but I think we made some connections today with a few people. So you'll see some of these starting to come out here shortly, very similar to last year. In addition to that, there was discussion about working with some of our female firefighters and doing a video with them this year, showcasing them in a, traditionally male-dominated path, profession there. So there's been some scheduling back and forth. So you'll see that coming out. The discussion I had with Krista, who is our staff liaison working with that committee, is we automatically fell behind this year because in February is the time where we set the committees, right? And then this happens in March. So a couple of things that maybe we as staff are making as suggestions. One, allowing this recognition to kind of move into March, or excuse me, March, move into April with some of the nominations we're getting now. And then reconvene the committee at the end of 2024 to plan for the 2025 event then, and really be able to move more quickly next year. So that would be staff's recommendation as to how this committee should move forward. But
looking for your feedback.
Can I just say something quick too? Because at our last commission meeting with the full commission, we had talked about different subcommittees that we were going to be on. I had different ones that I had volunteered for at that time. And then we had some discussions afterwards, Sarah and I did, and I personally felt like, although I love being on the Martin Luther King Day Human Rights Celebration, I have been on that for 8 years. And I would like to try something new. And so that's why I kind of came in late to the Women's Appreciation, Women's History, and then also the Pride Committee. But I just wanted to clear up any confusion about what we heard last month compared to this month.
Well, thank you for reporting. That's great. Do you want us to discuss the idea of moving forward with showcasing the Chaska Fire Department? Are you
I
seeking?
think I'm looking for feedback if you're okay that we post some of these in moving into April, as it's unlikely it's probably gonna get, there might be one we're able to post tomorrow. We're waiting for some feedback on that one, but if you're okay that we post some of these in April, and in particular, fire. But if the commission is not comfortable with that, what we can do is hold these and look at it for next year, if that's something that the committee wants to do. So looking for just feedback on those items.
So nominations are accepted on our webpage. Any thoughts? Hannah, you're searching.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think that sounds fine. There also, according to Google, May 4th is International Firefighters Day. So if we wanted to even, we needed more time, we could always
Sure.
make it look intentional. Readjust. But I definitely like the idea of meeting. I think at the end of the year makes sense because there's not enough time to plan before.
Yeah, I like the idea of starting to plan the next one at the end of this year. Like we do for the Martin Luther King one is for,
Yeah.
the year ahead of time. Because the beginning of the year things are really tough to plan when we're just getting a new commission started. If we had plans in place, that'd be great. We could still keep going smoothly.
Because then we'd think it'd be more of a handoff as opposed to
Yes.
starting fresh.
Right.
Okay. So it's not that the people who are on the subcommittee would stay, but that they could hand it off to the next one? Is that?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I think that's essentially what as staff, when we talked about it today, was thinking
Okay.
that, if folks want to stay on that subcommittee, they
Mhm.
certainly can. But if not, the bulk of the work has been done, so you can at least get it started at the beginning of March.
Yep. I think that's a great plan, personally.
Do you have an updated list of the subcommittees and who is on each of the subcommittees?
I do. Yes.
That might be helpful to distribute again.
Yep.
Particularly I see Britt shaking her head, so that would be probably very helpful if we could have that once again.
Yep.
Thank you.
Just out of curiosity, how many committees is one allowed to join?
You could join them all, Judy.
Because I would like to do, believe I'm currently on the Cultural Heritage Month, but I would like to do Asian and Pacific Islander recognition as well, if that's a possibility, if that's not already full. But
They're all full at this point.
okay. Mhm.
But if that's of interest,
When I send it around, if you want to talk to fellow commissioners to see if there's interest in switching.
Oh, sorry. Judy, I am on it and you are more than welcome to come in and give suggestions or anything that you would like to contribute as well. So, you're there.
The one rule about some committees, though, is that only 3 commissioners can serve together, so that's why it makes it tricky.
So I guess for our viewing people, our viewing folks, if there is a person that you know in the city of Chaska who could be nominated for Women's Appreciation and their contributions in Chaska, please seek out our webpage for the nomination form. Okay, so that does take us to the Asian and Pacific Islander recognition. Is there? We have a.
I believe I got an email earlier today. Let me check real quick.
Great.
Do-do-do. No, I did not. It was for the cultural heritage. One actually, that's the email I got for today. No, we have not met. I did not. What you call it? I don't know, at least if you sent out the like contact stuff and all that, but if you did, I missed it. I apologize and all that. So I will email the other committee members on the Asia Pacific Islander committee and hope to have an update for next session.
I talked to Krista today as well, so when you're ready to engage with her, she's ready to go. So,
Lovely.
when you send out that email to the other subcommittee members, make sure to include her, and if you
Yeah.
need her email address, let me know.
Gotcha. Thank you. I think I will need that. Thank you.
Pride celebration. So I think that that's next on our list. Jen, are you our person to report? Oh, excuse me. Before we leave the Women's Appreciation Month, I wanted to, I don't know if any of you see the Neighbors of Chaska magazine that comes, but the Human Rights Commission was mentioned from our council members, Hubbard and Hatfield. You'll recall, and for those of who don't know, last March, we interviewed with those 2 individuals and former Mayor Tracy Swanson, and had an interesting discussion about women in politics. And so this year, Councilwoman Hatfield and Hubbard remembered that. And I just want to read a sentence from this article that said, "The conversation left a mark on us, serving as a poignant reminder that many of the challenges we grapple with today were confronted by generations before us. However, armed with the wisdom gained from the numerous women who have triumphed over adversity, we can draw inspiration to face those continued challenges head on and achieve remarkable success." So good stuff for the Human Rights Commission to be in that magazine. I believe it's a free publication. I don't know if any of you receive it in your mailbox, but I do. Let's see. Pride celebration. Who is going to report on Pride?
Do you want to, or do you want me to?
Go for it, yeah.
Great, the 2 of you.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, Britt, Kevin, and I are on the Pride Celebration Subcommittee. We've had a few meetings already. A couple just with the subcommittee and one with potential partners, just to throw out ideas, just hopes and dreams that they have, what they want to see at the Pride celebration. But just a recap of today's meeting. We we just want to remind everyone to mark their calendar, Saturday, July 23rd, 3 to 6 p.m. at Veterans Park.
July 23rd?
I mean, sorry, June
June?
23rd.
Okay.
Is it the 22nd?
Is it?
Is it the
I thought it was the
22nd?
22nd.
It's December 25th. No.
June.
My apologies.
It's-
It's 22nd. I wrote.
Saturday, June 22nd.
Thank you.
It's my brother's birthday. That's the only reason it's
Oh.
stuck in my mind.
You just say you're a really good subcommittee member.
Okay, yep, that's it, yeah.
It's at 3 to 6 p.m. at Veterans Park. And so we are just in the beginning stages of planning this. We've talked about some different ideas. We're hoping to still have some sort of music or a DJ. We're going to have some games and activities. We've talked about the yard games, so it's a block party
block
band
party wagon.
or wagon. That has the different yard games. That's always a big hit. Some sort of arts and crafts. Tie dyeing has always been something that people really like. We were talking about, is there a water activity or bounce house or something? We aren't sure if that is even doable, but Elise is looking into that a little bit. And then there's a playground at that park too. So, you know, the families that bring their little kids can enjoy that too. We would like to have ice cream available again, because that's always fun. So get your arms ready to scoop. We're checking into food trucks that are available so that we can hopefully have another option for those who want something besides ice cream. We hope to connect with Cassie Bernhardt at the high school and see if there's a community art project that we can do again. That is really a great part of this, where people can feel just like they're really contributing to something for the community. We'd like to have the face painters again, but we would hope to have more than one.
Yeah.
Just because last year was a lot of work for one person and she did a great job, but she shouldn't have to work that hard by herself. And then we were also talking about just educational booths. We'd like to have some different things. The library has expressed interest in working with us again. There are a few other groups that have reached out, but we would like to kind of explore what kind of resources are available to those in Chaska or Carver County that would be pertinent to the Pride Festival and LGBTQIA plus, just different resources that we have for them. You know, maybe they can have tables, which brings me to the tables that we were talking about. We're exploring the idea of maybe asking for a small payment or sponsorship for groups that would like to be involved to help offset some of the costs. Because this is one of the bigger events of the year and more costly than some of the other ones. It would be great if we could kind of defray some of the costs so we can make it as big and fun as possible. And we think there's an important aspect to offer that educational piece that I think we've done that in the past to some extent, but maybe, you know, focusing a little bit more on different opportunities for this year. Like I said, we had a meeting with the potential partners. We had people there from Chaska Parks and Rec, from School District 112, Carver County Mental Health, Carver County Library, and the new organization that's called Carver County Pride. There was a representative there also from the Twin Cities Pride. who seems like that could be a really great resource to connect us to some of the things that we are wondering about for this year. We're gonna re-engage with them all in April to kind of hammer out details of how they'll be involved and what that looks like. But this is still, we did make a point of kind of talking about this at that meeting with the whole group, is that this historically has been a Chaska human rights event. And we'd like to keep that. I mean, we know that Carver County Pride might be doing some other events. But we would still like to continue the Chaska Human Rights Commission Pride Celebration, because that has just been a great event for our community. And finally, we need to ask our fellow commissioners to approve a budget amount for this year. We are thinking that we will spend about $2,000 this year on the event. We did spend $1,500 last year, but we did not have a DJ. That never came to fruition. So we had a volunteer who brought his iPod shuffle or whatever and did a fantastic job. But because we didn't pay for that last year, our expenditures were $1,500. So this year we're hoping to look into a professional or amateur-ish DJ. And so that will probably incur some costs. We don't know for sure that 2,000 is the amount, but we think that's what we can work with for now. So, anything else that we covered?
Yeah, you covered all of it. Good job.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
And
thank you
there's
for the
nitty
report.
gritty details, but I mean, yeah.
How much you asking the booths to pay? Or do you not know yet?
We don't know
You
yet,
don't know yet?
but if you have ideas about how much, let us know and we'll consider that.
Is it optional or it's gonna be?
We really haven't fleshed any of that out.
Okay.
We were just kind of talking high level ideas so far. We are meeting again in the next week or two as a subcommittee. We're trying to figure out a date and time. But at that meeting, we want to come up with detailed questions to ask the different potential partners and figure out the nitty gritty of what do we need to get figured out right now.
So are you making a motion?
I can make the motion, or you want to?
Just point of clarification. Last year, I think in advance of the Pride celebration, a motion was made and we approved expenses up to $1,500.
Yep, I think that's true. How we've started to do some of our subcommittees is to come in with a budget request so that we can block it off on our treasurer's report to help understand the bigger picture.
Right. Now, one of the things that we did last year was invest in the T-shirts. Was that a discussion today or in your subcommittee?
It was not, and Cassie Bernhardt was not at this larger meeting that we had, so we have not had contact with the GSA yet from the high school to talk about, their involvement and everything.
Great. Any questions or suggestions for the Pride Committee? And then I'll ask for your motion.
Do we normally have sponsors? for the
We haven't
event?
in the past.
Is that something that we would ever want to consider? Or is that sort of out of the scope of the event?
That is something, I mean, I think that's how we were looking at like these tables would be, if you contribute a certain amount of money, you would be sponsoring the event, but you could also have a table to share your literature or your educational resources, and also showing your support that you want to be a part of Chaska Pride celebration.
Because, so last year I helped with the tie-dye, and a fair number of people did not bring their own t-shirts, and we had some, but we ran out eventually because that's a super popular activity there. So at one of the clubs I'm in, we do t-shirt sponsors. So we could, just throwing this out there, this could be extremely far-fetched and undoable, but just as an idea, have just plain white t-shirts that would obviously get tie-dyed, but they could say, I don't know, Chaska Pride Celebration, and then on the back you could have various organizations or companies that choose to sponsor the event, have them pay to put their name on the back, and then you basically have how many of our people come to the event. Let's say it's around 75. You have 75 walking billboards for your company. So it benefits them, benefits us, helps lower expenses, and then also it's fun. So just something to consider. I don't know how far-fetched that
Definitely,
is, but
yeah. Yeah, we have not talked about the expenses of t-shirts yet or anything like that. We got as far as saying they'll probably need to get more bandanas. Because we did have those for free for people who didn't bring something of their own too. But that would be a great way to do some sponsorship things too.
right.
Last year I was able to, someone donated to me a number of new white t-shirts for tie-dyeing. And so those are the t-shirts that we had. I can certainly check with that resource and see if they're willing to do that again. I think maybe we had 25. Obviously, you would need more because you're right, we ran out of
Mhm.
folks wanting to have a t-shirt for tie-dyeing, but I can certainly check into that resource for you.
Sure. That would be great. I mean, we're very open to any ideas right now. Because like I said, we're in the beginning stages. And we're excited about it. And, we are trying to get things narrowed down to what we want to do when we come back to ask you guys for help, when we want you to scoop ice cream and tie dye and things like that. So, yeah, bring it on.
I think, yeah, I like Juhi's suggestion. I think, working at an organization that tables those events as an educational thing, like we can't afford to pay to go to those. So if we're like asking the educational tables to pay, I think that's gonna be hard. And like for my organization's gonna be at Twin Cities Pride, and there are sponsorships so that like there is a fee, but like the nonprofits get that covered. So like the businesses will sponsor, like maybe, I don't know, one of the local businesses here doesn't really make sense to have a table, but they would sponsor the event or something. It's a little more like contacts and complicated, I think, than just asking the tables to do it. But I think for like, especially for like the educational or like, yeah, some of the resource tables, it would be hard for those folks to pay.
This is good feedback. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Anything else?
I don't have any. Oh, I need to make a motion.
One more thing.
Yes. I make a motion to request up to $2,000 to be budgeted towards the Chaska Human Rights Commission Pride Celebration that will be on June 22nd.
There's been a motion made. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Britt. So the motion has been made to approve up to $2,000 for the Chaska Pride Celebration, not to exceed $2,000. Motion made by Jen, seconded by Britt. Is there any further discussion? Having heard none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes carry. Thank you for your work so far. We look forward to hearing more. Cultural Heritage Month. did I hear you? Is River-
Yes,
River City Days first or?
Oh, I skipped right over 7E. River City Days.
I'm on that subcommittee, but we have not had any meetings, yet.
Okay,
I imagine
When is it?
some will be scheduled shortly. Yeah.
who is the staff liaison for River City Days?
That's Kevin.
Is that the last weekend in July always?
Yes.
Okay.
Always the last weekend and guaranteed to be the hottest, always. Either that or incredibly
Or I was
windy.
gonna say, or windiest when it wasn't hot.
Right. Absolutely. Okay, so we'll look for a report on that next month. Cultural Heritage Month. Yusuf,
Sarah Juhi and I are on the Cultural Heritage Subcommittee. We got an email today from Kevin to start the conversations on the meetings and such and all that. Juhi, have you had any talkings with Sarah? Because I haven't.
I have not. But there was one thing, so last year it was focused mostly on African culture and African heritage. And this year, if possible, I'd like to make it a World Heritage celebration. We do something similar at my high school, and it's really cool to see everybody come together. Everybody gets dressed up, and then they bring things to showcase their culture. And it's really cool because we do it we organize the event based on a map. So you're given a map, and based on the actual map of the world, it's organized like that in our high school commons. So that's always really fun. And it's a great way to bring everybody together. And I'd like to do that in our community because if the more cultures you include, the more people you include, and the more people get excited about it. So I think that could be something important to consider for this year, not just focusing on African culture, but other places as well.
excellent idea. I'll look forward to working with you and Yusuf on it and Kevin. I like around the world. That sounds exciting. So, hold on, we'll give you a report next month. Let's make sure I don't skip over Indigenous peoples recognition. We identified that last year as something that we wanted to do this year, particularly in light of the completion of our downtown, pardon me, our downtown streets and hope that we would have some collaboration with regards to the believed Ionian mounds that are located in City Park. So that's kind of on the agenda to talk about that recognition. Also reaching out to the organization that's active within School District 112. So I think more to come on that, not unless you have an update.
I don't have an update.
Is that a subcommittee or is this just?
I
no?
believe it would be a
It is.
subcommittee.
It is. Yep. So Ren, Kevin, me, and Yusuf are on that subcommittee, and Kevin Wright is the staff liaison.
Veteran acknowledgement was also something that we looked at and recommended to the commission to consider in 2024. The idea about it was to, or the concept, I guess I should say, is to acknowledge those individuals who have served our country, who may currently serve in an armed services role, and hopefully being a partner with the pretty exciting program that they have every year at Chaska Middle School. I believe it is the middle school. So I think more to come on that. Typically, veteran acknowledgement is identified with the month of November. But, and of course, this is March and it will soon be November again. So we'll have to get on that too. Yeah. Community partnerships. No doubt you want to know about communities of belonging. So that is something that I've continued to participate in. I don't know if I'm the official liaison to that group work, but it has a thread to my heart. And so I've been continuing to participate in communities of belonging. We had a very exciting event a few weeks ago where we met with communities of belonging that have been organized in Cologne, Waconia, soon to be in Chanhassen, and of course, Chaska. And so we talked a little bit about, with the larger group, about the kinds of things that we had identified that we wanted to do. Communities of belonging presented to the City Council of Chaska earlier this month and asked for their input into reconnecting ourselves to the values that were initially established for the city of Chaska back in the late 80s. And so we're looking to work with many members of Chaska as we move forward in fine-tuning those values and looking at next steps. And so I know that in April, there's a meeting scheduled again. They're interested at all in finding more about communities of belonging. Pat Stieg from the Carver County Public Health Office has been just a great resource to us and other communities as they talk about what does belonging mean. And so I'm sure that he'd be willing to come back and talk with us again about communities of belonging if there's an interest. Any communications? Elise, have we received any communications? Okay. So our next meeting date is April 25th. Any other announcements before we adjourn? Yusuf, do you have anything?
I do not have any announcements, no.
Okay, Hannah?
No.
Judith? Good, welcome. Thank you. Elise? All right, then may I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion made. I think we'll all say second, but let's just make sure.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion adjourned. Thank you so much.